Hi everyone and welcome to Book Boop. My name is Rachel and welcome to yet another recent reads. I know I've already done one of these really recently, recent reads, but I'm actually a little bit behind on reviewing some books, so I wanted to go ahead and do another one because I still have several books I need to talk about that I've read relatively recently. So let's go ahead and jump in. I've got 6 different books to talk about that I read in the past few months. I'm going to try to do this without referring to any notes or anything because I feel like it goes a little bit faster. But that also means I have to really rely on my memory on what these books are about and what I thought about them. So that's going to be interesting. So let's start with this first one that just has the most gorgeous cover. I love it so very much. And that is Horrid by Katrina Leno. Just look at the majesty of this cover. It is so disturbing yet gorgeous at the same time, and I love it. I love it so much. So this book is about a girl and her mom who have recently lost their dad/husband, and they have moved to the complete other side of the country to move into an old family home that their grandmother had left to them. And this is a home that originally this girl's mom never wanted to go back to. She never really wanted to go back to her hometown, but they kind of found themselves at a place where they needed to move, partly because of money and partly because just to have a fresh start after losing such a close family member and person in their lives. So they end up going back and living in this big old home that's in the country, and spooky things start happening. It's pretty much a haunted house type story, and they move in, and this girl and her mom have such a great relationship. It kind of reminds me of like a Gilmore Girls relationship, and I really, really love that. They have a really great relationship and friendship between the two of them, which is just really, really sweet. And it's really cool though, when they go there, her mom isn't really telling her a whole lot about her past or why she doesn't really like being in the house or why she didn't really want to come back. And there's this room in the house that's locked up, and her mom just said, oh, it's just a storage room. They just keep it locked up. It's got a bunch of junk in it. But then one day, mysteriously, the room is unlocked, and when she goes in, it's not a storage room. It's a room for a little girl. And it's all like perfectly laid out. There's still like clothes and stuff in the closet. And it's just like, what is this? It's like this perfectly preserved room, and spooky things start going down, and it's just nice and creepy. And I love a haunted house story. I just love that vibe. I love the spookiness of it, and it's just, This one had great atmosphere. I really loved the main character. I don't remember her name for the life of me because I'm terrible at remembering character names. But our main character, I really liked her because I liked her reactions to the things that were happening in the home. She, to me, did logical things. Like at one point before she thought maybe it might be something paranormal, she would actually think, okay, there's possibly an intruder in the house. Let's make sure we call the cops, or like, let's make sure we have a weapon on hand, or I don't know. She was just smart and I appreciated that. She didn't seem dumb about the situation. And I just really, really liked her character. I loved seeing her kind of restart in this new town and making friends and just dealing with her grief, and also just making new friends and meeting new people, and also dealing with this house where that's just disturbing. And it's just, I feel like I'm all over the place explaining this book, but I really liked it a lot. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I really, truly enjoyed this. I just thought it was a stinking blast to read, and I'm so glad that I liked the book just as much as I liked the cover. I'm hoping to add this one to my collection at some point because it's beautiful and I really enjoyed it. I wouldn't mind rereading it again at some point. So that's Horrid. It was a good time. I enjoyed it. It wasn't horrible. Ha 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 ha. Okay, I need to stop with the puns in this video. All right, the next one I want to talk about is Horsemen by Christina Henry. This is a very recently released read, and I was so excited about it because it is a Headless Horseman retelling. At least that's what I kind of assumed it would be, because since Christina Henry does a lot of fairy tale retellings or just sort of like legend retellings and things like that. So I was really excited to read this because I love me some Headless Horseman. I love it. I love the old classic Disney cartoon of the Headless Horseman. I love the story. I love the vibe of it. I love that particular character for Halloween. I just think it's such a cool, creepy character. And I was really excited about the idea about jumping into this retelling or continuation or whatever it was going to end up being. And I was so excited about it. And this did end up being more of a continuation, and I have to say, unfortunately, it missed the mark for me. I did not like it. I didn't like our main character very much. I understood her character in a way. So she is this girl who is living in a time period and also in this small town where it's expected that every single girl kind of goes through this same lot in life. Every single girl is supposed to act a certain way, is supposed to get married at a certain age, is supposed to become some kind of something, like a housewife. Basically, like, you're basically supposed to just grow up, get married, be a housewife, make babies. That was it. And we're following this girl who doesn't want to live that. She wants to follow in her grandfather's footsteps, and she wants to be more of a farmer and a hunter and a tracker, and she sees herself as much more boyish. She just doesn't want to be what her society views as her as a woman needs to be. So I appreciated her character in that way, but that was shoved on you so much. That felt like that was her heaviest character trait, was just constantly going on about how she didn't want to be what society wanted her to be, and just butting heads with that constantly. And I felt like that is what seemed to drive what was going on more so than the story itself. And I just had trouble connecting with her because I felt like she was just so inward and not outward enough towards what was going on around her. She just wasn't a character I enjoyed being in the head of. To be honest, I don't really remember that much that happened in the story. I know there was some like mystery and murder and things like that. Like, people were dying horribly, but there was who was killing them, and just like there was a lot of mystery to it. But I just never really felt that pulled in. I never felt like super intrigued to know what was going on. And once things were explained, I still was kind of like, oh, okay. And I didn't like the writing style in it. It just didn't grab me. So I ended up giving this one 2 out of 5. I'm really disappointed with it because I was hoping to absolutely love it. I think maybe if it had been a retelling, I think I would have enjoyed it more if it was focused on sort of the main characters we're familiar with and the story we're kind of familiar with, but maybe telling it in a new way. I think I would have been more intrigued with that. This kind of being more of a continuation, I don't know. It didn't vibe with me, and I just didn't really connect with the characters, didn't really connect with the story, just wasn't for me. So unfortunately, this one for me was a stinker. So that's disappointing. Christina Henry's books are a hit or a miss for me. I either really enjoy them or they're just like, ugh, not for me. So unfortunately, that was another one that just wasn't for me. All right, let's talk about A Wicked Magic by Sasha Lawrence. This is one that I thought would be absolutely perfect for October because it's a nice witchy vibe of a book. So we're following these 2 teenage girls who find this really dark, interesting book, I think in a little free library. And this book has like these strange incantations and things in it. And they're like, oh wow, I think it's supposed to be a spell book. How cool. And then they're like, well, let's just try to do some of the spells and see what happens. And the spells actually end up working, and they end up dabbling in being witches until one of their spells goes horribly wrong, and one of the girls' boyfriends ends up getting taken away by this creature that they ended up calling somehow with some spell they did. And then after that happens, they both basically swear off witchcraft and like, oh my goodness, what have we done? We did something we shouldn't have. And they used to be best friends and now they're not anymore. And so we're following these 2 girls as they are trying to figure out what happened to this boy, if they're able to get him back, and then just sort of following the rabbit trail of how can we get him back, but also how we'll be able to get him back without harming other people around us, because most likely they will have to probably crack that book back open and get back into some spells to be able to save the boyfriend. So it was interesting. It was a lot more angsty than I was expecting it to be. There was a lot of focus on sort of the witchy aspect and things, but there was also a lot of focus on the character growth, a lot of focus on the difficulties and things that both kind of our main 2 girl characters were facing. One of our main girl characters was really, really struggling with depression to the point where she was having an issue with self-harm. So self-harm, trigger warning, and depression and things like that. and also verbal abuse between children and parents too. So there's a lot of just trigger warnings in this, and a lot of things just that are difficult topics, which I wasn't expecting in this. I didn't really expect to be exploring that as much. I thought it was going to be more focused on just the witchiness of it, and it kind of being like a Sabrina type feel. Do you know what I mean? Instead of it being more focused as well on the characters themselves and just what they were going on in their lives and what they were thinking and feeling. So it was less of a plot type of ride and more of a character driven ride, if that makes any sense. I ended up giving this 3 out of 5, so I didn't hate it, didn't love it. It just wasn't quite what I expected to be. It also felt a little bit long to me, but I enjoyed it for what it was. I enjoyed the witchy aspect. I enjoyed kind of the spookiness, creepiness of it, of these strange creatures that could be called out of the dark and all that kind of stuff. It was just creepy in that aspect of it, and I did enjoy that. It just didn't quite hit the vibe I was expecting. So yeah, it was okay. I wasn't absolutely in love with it. All right, let's go through one more here that's going to be on my tablet that I don't have physically, and then I had 2 more books that I actually own and have physically. This one is one I had on my TBR for the longest time. I'm glad I finally got to it, and that is Kingdom of the Wicked by Kerri Maniscalco. Kerri Maniscalco wrote the Stalking Jack the Ripper book series, which was this 1800s, obviously set during the Jack the Ripper murders, and had this sort of like dark, spooky, foggy London atmosphere. And that series I didn't absolutely love, but the atmosphere was peak. And I feel like it could have been really amazing. And this one I was like, okay, this one sounded really cool. So the premise of this one is we were following these twin sisters. Are they twin sisters? No. They're twin sisters. Or are they just sisters? I can't remember. I think they're, no, yes, they're identical twin sisters. Okay. Sorry, books are blending in together in my brain. Identical twin sisters, and they are both witches. And one of the sisters, and this is not a spoiler, this is in the description of the book, one of the sisters ends up being brutally murdered, and her other surviving sister obviously wants to find out what happened to her sister, who killed her sister and why, and also revenge. And while she's doing so and trying to figure this out, she ends up meeting and kind of joining up with a demon prince to basically figure out who murdered her sister, because he also is interested to know, because this is kind of in a line of murders and she's kind of the next person in this line of murders that's related to, I think, some other dark things. And so this demon prince also wants to figure out who is murdering these people. And so they kind of team up, and of course they have this attraction. Kerri Maniscalco has this thing of taking 2 characters, and she has a lot of romance focus in her books, which usually isn't my thing, but if you mix it with some like dark spookiness, some paranormal, then I'm interested. And that's what this one did. I am so happy I ended up enjoying this as much as I did. One of the things I really enjoyed about it is it takes place in Italy. There's a lot of descriptions of delicious food that will make your mouth water. Our main character, her family are incredible cooks, and they have a restaurant. So there's a lot of descriptions of cooking food and different dishes and things. And I was just, oh, my mouth watering thinking about it right now, because I love me some good Italian food. So it was really good reading that. I was really interested in the murder mystery aspect of it. I actually did gasp. Oh, I did enjoy the romance. It's angsty, it is, and that's usually not my thing, but I was just enjoying the ride. I was enjoying this whole thing of like, they kind of hate it's like a hate to love thing, you know, they just like kind of detest each other and hate each other, but then it's like, oh, but he's so rugged and handsome, but he's also a demon prince, so, you know, he's probably lying all the time, and blah, blah, you know. So it was interesting. It was a good time. It was dark, and it was spooky, and it was romantic, and I feel like it was the perfect blend to go from October to December. I ended up reading this one this month in November, and it just was the perfect blend, because it's like you got the romance, which feels more like, I don't know, cozy, but then you also have like the spooky witchiness, demon thing, murder, all of that kind of goes with the October spooky vibe. So it's like a perfect transition book. I'm excited to read the next one in this series. Just for more of the vibes, to be honest, I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I got tongue-tied there. So this was a good time. I actually enjoyed this one more than Stalking Jack the Ripper, from what I can tell so far. So it was enjoyable. I'm shocked and I'm excited that I have a new series to read that has a little bit of romance in it that I'm actually having fun with. So yay, that's always good. All right, so I got 2 more books here to talk about that I actually do have physically. One of them is Constable and Toop by Gareth P. Jones. I adore this cover. Look how gorgeous it is. This is one of those books where the hardcover is the cover. Like there's not a paper cover to it, and it's just so stinking pretty. I love books like this. I love just like the regular books that are just printed this gorgeous. It's just, This is a nice spooky middle grade that I thought would be perfect for the spooky season in October, and it really was. We are following this young boy whose father works for a funeral home, and it takes place, I think it kind of takes place in the early 1900s or late 1800s. I don't know. It's kind of more, I don't know, it's got that Victorian feel or I don't know, something like that. But all right, we're following this boy who's been around death a lot because his father works at a funeral home and helps prepare the bodies of the dead and things like that and builds the caskets and all those things. And this boy is actually able to see ghosts, and he helps kind of carry messages between ghosts and their living relatives. And that's kind of something he's kind of doing as like a side hustle type thing. And on top of that, we're also following a ghost who works for a ghost society and kind of keeping track of different ghosts that are on Earth. And there's something that's spreading called the black rot, where if a home or a building does not have a resident ghost, it starts to kind of deteriorate in a way, and it will actually trap ghosts within the home. So it will trap a ghost if it goes inside, and they won't be able to leave. And it's spreading throughout London, and it's becoming a problem for the living and the dead. And so it's kind of this whole mystery thing of what's causing the black rot, why is this happening? And it ended up being a much heavier and darker book than I expected it to be. Since it's middle grade, I figured it was going to be spooky but lighthearted, which it still had lots of lighthearted moments, but it did have a lot of heavy moments as well, and honestly some relatively scary moments. I mean, there's some parts in here that were really actually pretty gory, which I was shocked about. There's some murderous things that happen in here, and it was pretty visual. I wasn't expecting that in a middle grade. So I feel like this one is more like an older middle grade, closer to YA in that respect. But I did enjoy it. I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would. I just didn't get grabbed as much as I would have liked. But there were some really funny moments in the book. There were some parts that actually made me laugh out loud. There were some scary moments. There were some heartwarming moments. I ended up giving it 3 out of 5. And I do recommend, I think it's great for spooky season. And if you're really interested in reading kind of spooky middle grades, then this one is a lot of fun for you. So yeah, 3 out of 5. Good times. Last one I'm going to talk about is a book that really messed with my head, and I don't even know if I'm going to be able to describe it well, because when I try to think back on what I thought about this book, my brain is just a mush with all the crazy stuff that happened in this book. And that is Rules for Vanishing by Kate Alice Marshall. This is one I heard was really, really scary, which if I hear that, I'm like, yes, please. I get excited. This is a story about a road in the woods, or a path in the woods that appears once a year. And if you go on the path, you're not allowed to leave it until you go all the way through. There are certain rules you have to follow on the path, and if you break the rules, you disappear. Like, you don't come back at all. So first of all, I'm thinking, why would you go on the path in the first place? If you could die/disappear on this path, why would you do that? Anyways, so that's kind of like the concept of this book. All right, now we've got a girl and her sister. Her sister, the year previous, went on the road, disappeared, didn't come back. Didn't see that coming, right? Then the next year, the sister, who is not disappeared, goes, I'm going to see if I can find her. So she goes on the road with her friends to see if she can find her. And my goodness, the road is weird. The road is weird. There's lots of really weird stuff that happens that I'm not going to describe because I don't want to spoil anything, and I don't think I'm going to describe it well anyways, but it was weird and creepy and disturbing, and I had a good time with it. I gave this 4 out of 5. It definitely was creepy. I didn't know what was going on half the time, but kind of in a good way. It was weird. It was so weird that I was just like, give me more. I want to know what happens, but also at the same time, what is happening right now? So it's a really interesting type of read for sure. I will say I didn't particularly love the ending that much. The ending was a little bit of a letdown for me personally. Some people might really love this ending, but it went in a direction that another book that I read did this kind of direction that I didn't like either, which was a house of salt and sorrows. The ending on that one I wasn't a huge fan of, and for some reason the ending of this one reminded me of that in a way. So I didn't really particularly like the ending that much, but the story, the ride, the creepy, weird ride that this took me on, I liked it. I don't know what happened, but I liked it. So 4 out of 5, it was a good time. So if you want some, I'm not going to say mind, you know what, then there you go. This is the one for you. So yeah, good times. All right, those are all the books I was going to talk about. I feel like I didn't describe them very well, but that's what I can remember, and that's what I thought about them. I hope you enjoyed this crazy review thing that just felt like it bounced all over the place. Let me know if you've read any of these books and what you thought about them. Let me know what has been a favorite book that you have read recently. I would love to know. Have you had any 5 stars? I have not had very many 5 stars this year. Have you had a 5-star recently? I would love to know that. On this side of the video over here is my logo. If you click on that, you can subscribe to my channel. Follow me on my book journey. On this side of the video over here, a suggestion for another video if you want to watch another one right now. But thank you so much for watching. You rock, and don't forget to keep reading. Bye.